Commander, there's something I have to tell you. I went into the mists after my sword, but I found something else.
Refugees are pouring in from Alona.
If he kills an Elder Dragon, Tyrian will never recover.
They cannot stand in the glory of Balthazar's light.
I will right this wrong.
I just can't believe one of the gods gave up on us.
They cannot escape my wrath. When I am done, I will be the only god.
Hello everyone, and welcome to this special episode of the art show. I am sellout / concept artist Vasburg, and today I have the huge honor to be streaming for you a special art show themed around the next expansion. We are going to speedrun concept art today, environment concept art to be more precisely, and to throw in some more exciting elements, we are going to destroy some images on purpose and later on work them into our work. But let me get to the sellout part quickly. On this part of the screen, there are social media handles, and if you like to, stalk me on there. For 3 reasons mainly. First, you are into art. Second, you are into cringy personalities. 3, you like gems, because I have loads of them. In fact, I have the best gems, and I'm planning to give them all away. So if you want to have a chance to win some gemarinos before the expansion hits you, feel free to go there. Secondly, last but not least, I also set up one of these Patreon thingies. Everything we paint today here available in higher definition PSDs, and you can also print it. But enough of the advertisement already. So what do I have in store for you today? Let me go over this quickly. As you have seen the intro, here are some quick shots. What happened over the weekend? This is how it got together. You see a bit of, you know, line drawing, then a quick block in, so I have a feeling, does this work, doesn't this work? And a bit more refined perspective. Then we go into this, and I wanted to have a little mountain in the background where the lightning strikes and so on, but it doesn't really work out, does it? It's just way too overcrowded, so I made a grave decision and cut everything out. And I think for the better, which leaves us with this. Yeah, but what are we going to do with that? Do we just throw that away, or can we recycle it maybe? Well, today we are going to take a dip into glitch art. Even if you are not into artsy stuff, I can highly recommend it to you, because these techniques are easy, free, and you can use it on whatever you like. Screenshots, selfies, whatever. And especially on Mesmer screenshots, this should perform very well. But you will see what I mean in a minute. So, let me go over this quickly. What's that? I can't really remember putting this in there. Do you see that? It's weird. Almost looks like a gem code. I don't know. But anyhow, so we have this painting, and how can we make the most out of it? Well, how does glitch art function even? Well, if you save out an image and simply open it with your operating system, software usually displays the code into images, right? But you could, in theory, open this also with the editor. So you get a bunch of code and also a little meta text, where it was created, when it was created. You will see that in a second. Takes a while to load. There we go. Adobe Photoshop CC 2015, used on Windows, that makes sense. Created at this date, and ongoing text and text. Not what you would normally expect from programming, but this is how a compiled file, well, looks like. And to create glitch art, we could use strings of that, rewrite them, or just leave them out. But this would be a bit aimlessly. So since this is quite an interesting topic for many people, there are already some solutions out there. Check this out. It's one of my favorite sites. You can find it at this URL. And I have a lot of interesting levers at the bottom here. This is our normal painting, right? And if I crank this up and use the value here, it destroys the painting. Looks like some error happened and it just makes it a mess. This is too much, you know, this is just going crazy. We could crank this all the way up and then we get barely recognizable stuff, right? But let's go back a second. The cool thing is we can create color palettes with that. Look at that. Really nice red tones, bit of a cold blue. You know, this I actually like. You have this nice teal, bit of yellow, bit of green, might not use that, and a lot of dark browns, reds, yellow, orange. So I'm making a screenshot of that and simply paste it in there. That second screen, all the secret stuff is up. Just for reference later. So, but we didn't want to color pick, we wanted to create some interesting textures. So how can we do that? Well, I have a little handy helper over here too. What I would like to introduce to you today is pixel sorting. It's kind of an algorithm that sorts pixel not by what makes sense and was described in the application, but it rather goes into sorting the pixels by a value, which doesn't often have to make sense. So we have our painting over here, which we know and love, and then I'm firing up processing 2, free software if you like to check it out. And the algorithm I didn't write myself, I'm not smart enough for that, called ASDF Pixel Sort. You can Google that up if you like, can highly recommend it. So we have to take the name of the image for that. Props 8 is the name, it's a JPEG, and now I'm going to put in a 0 over here. And when I run this through, a little screen pops up, and then it disappears again, and it sorts the pixels by black. We are going to do that by 2 different algorithms. No. Go, run that. So now I'm sorting it by the bright pixels, and I'm going to show you what I mean in just a second. And no, 0 we already had, we want the 2, right? Let that run, close our little application, don't want to save it. But before I show you the results, I wanted to give a quick shout out actually to the Black Lion trader Armor Smith. So there's that. Let me return the music up. Perfect. Alrighty, so this is the painting we started out with, right? Oh, it's actually the Nightfall soundtrack running in the background, if you wonder. I'm not too much familiar with that, but I didn't pick a Gachi version by accident. So this gives us that. Look at this. All the pixels are sorted in a horizontal way by a value we specified, and if we go further, it gets even crazier until we end up with that. Isn't that amazing, guys? So we are going to use that today. Let me take the last 2 examples and throw them into Photoshop, like so. Maybe save the image with a meaningful name like image, right? So let me look quickly into the chat. Perfect. By the way, if you are an art interested person, I know this is a bit speedrunny and I don't have the time in these 2 hours to, you know, chat a lot with you guys, but if you like to, ArenaNet is hosting a new format called the Sunday art class. 4 hours, that's a lot of time, and a lot of great art colleagues are over there and are more than happy to answer your questions. Pardon me. If you like to check that out, keep track of the official GW2 streaming calendar. They normally announce that over there. So what are we going to do with that? You see these textures already? It almost looks like a dune, you know? So if I just make a copy of that and just play a bit with it, you know? Imagine as if you were seeing things in clouds, you know? Interpreting what could this be? Could this be an elephant or whatever? And we are doing the same with our image here. And it already looks a bit like a cityscape, if you ask me. Like so. Now we could even take, for example, this area around here, because I don't know what to do with that actually. And if we take it like so, larger, and rotate or warp it a bit by perspective, maybe give it some warp to it, it looks already like a city, you know, like some desert-ish environment. Ain't that cool? So, to further go a bit crazy, I'm going to make a copy of everything we see here on a new layer and mirror it a bit around, like so. And now, for people who checked out a few streams of mine will already realize these are my best bros. Difference, exclusion, subtract, because they do really crazy things like that. See that? Maybe I want to go with a bit like that. Yeah. And I'm gonna change the color of it, like so. That's amazing. Already I like that. It's not loading. Ah, there we go, my mistake. So, maybe erase a bit away, and we can use this texture to paint onto, right? So what I planned today is 2 hours, not too much time, so I'm a bit, you know, in a rush, but I would like to have some Elonian market with the towers, and every time you see you know, Arabic architecture. You have these round forms, you know, think of the Taj Mahal, and also a lot of geometry. I'm not sure if we can make so much details today, but let's give it a try. So I think I overset. No, I actually didn't. Can use now this glitch art to take some interesting color values out of that. To keep that, I'm just taking a super round brush and just going over that. But that's a bit to normalize that. This highlights and stuff is something I want to worry about later. Now I'm picking some brighter colors. Maybe something like that, right? I'll just take it out of here. Yeah, I like that color more. Well, that like so. They already have some light going on. And just for the sake of texture lottery we are in today, I'm gonna play a bit with these layers. Let's see if there's something interesting that comes up. Yeah, look at that. So next I would like to have some towers that, you know, represent a bit of the Arabic culture, and we are going to just rely on silhouettes for the moment to give us, you know, a little standpoint to work from. I'm gonna make a little copy of this texture because that will come handy in later. Cool. Let me check something quickly for the moment. I know this is an art stream, but I hope it's not too boring for you guys. You are probably all hyped for the expansion already, but yeah, I hope there's something in for you today. Like gems! Oh my god! Is that a gem code? Oh no! What am I doing with that? Oh no! Help! ArenaNet! Are you there? How do I take information off the internet? Whew, that was close. Hopefully no one entered that in GW2 and got 400 gems, because then I had to go to the police. Guys, please don't do that, of course. Whew, that was close. So let's get back to the painting. I give this more of a pinch of, you know, purple to have a bit more deeper blue instead of this greenish, because I don't want to go into this direction too much. And let's start out with the some interesting instrument. Do you hear that, guys? Almost forgot about the Nightfall soundtracks. Make it a bit louder so you can listen too. So, towers are always cool. So what I'm doing is I use the lasso tool. I'm trying to make them not too phallic, guys. I'm on it. But bear with me, right? So, and maybe there's something interesting going on, like so. That's... I shouldn't have mentioned that, damn it. So maybe there's like... a bit like that. It looks... Don't say what this looks like. I know it, everyone knows it, but we'll get there, Don't worry. So what we can do with these silhouettes already is use them or reuse them to make some more interesting stuff going on. We could, for example, take this, warp it a bit. And I'm not really sold on that, to be honest. But we'll roll with that. I can see that happening. I keep over the chat. Oh, hey there, Marv, and of course, hey Hannah, one of my former guild leaders. World vs. World avid guy. And always a blast running with him through Elona. That was our home server. I wonder what these guys are up to. I would like to transfer back, but it's always so full. So the devs definitely made something right with the World vs. World patch. You can say what you want, but something they had to do right. Okay, so that's going into the right direction already, right? That looks somewhat working. Let's see. Oh, a second tower. You know what? I'm too lazy. I just make a copy of that and then we can reiterate that. What's an interesting tower shape? The main thing I'm concerned about is making interesting shapes and would like to make them as diverse as possible. So I'm taking away this and maybe make something like a little whoop. That looks Arabic already, I find. What do you guys think? Oh yeah, there we go. You could argue I might be a professional. Amazing. Alrighty, so that's how you can save some time apparently. But the thing that bothers me a bit is that these are too similar in this stage. So what I'm simply doing is I select that and then I'm going to do that. Maybe duplicate it. Make a little more of a sturdy base for that. Now it looks like I painted them completely differently, but you don't claim that or say that to the client. It was hard work that went into that. Spent 8 hours just to come up with the shapes. Now always be upfront with your clients. So, you know what? I am going to doodle a bit for a moment. I make a little flat, hard brush so I can explore some forms, what could work, what couldn't work. And later on I can simply use the lasso tool again to give me this sexy, crisp outline I want to have in all my buildings. I think I'm actually really happy with that already. What a surprise. I'm just surprised as you guys are. Righty. Make a copy of that, mirror it, and this is going to be the cool tower. That's our star. So let's see, make a little bubble, and I want this to be like, I don't want to make this elliptical, but rather like a big bulky bubble tower, like so. We are overthrowing some interesting shapes we made in there. Yeah, look at that. It looks interesting, doesn't it? And not too much into the phallic direction. So what I'm going to do now, if you saw the concept art, they had these interesting shapes that, you know, they took away, and this was simply like a, it looked a bit like a spider, if you know what I mean, that was sitting on top one of these towers in a round one. Really, really cool design, I find. I probably have rambled along this so often already, if you know these streams I'm doing, but I'm not an illustrator. I don't care about aesthetics and super nice design and yeah. What I'm really into is finding interesting and cool designs. I want to come up with cool weapon skins with cool forms that the environment artists can later use to, you know, model, or not environment artists if they are the 3D guy, not the guy working in the engine, blah blah blah. So I want to, you know, give some inspiration to these guys, which sounds a bit artsy, but it's actually really feasible to get a concept artist for that, because I can make an image like that in a matter of few hours. And if a 3D artist does a little experiment and it fails, it might be, you know, days of work just thrown away. So the 3D artist relies a bit on the concept artist to provide him with ideas and, you know, do this filtering before it actually comes to the production stage. Or you do, for example, orthographics. You know, when a new weapon set comes out, you make a picture or paint them from front, back, top, bottom, and then the, you know, when you see splash art for big franchises, or just Ridlock, you know, as a super cool artwork, that's a disaster for a 3D artist to rely on, because he will ask questions like, how does Ridlock's armor look from the back? That's not to say that this is bad work, but it's an illustration more than it is concept art. Alrighty, so we have some interesting shapes here. I'm going to erase them away on this line. We give us a little less spacing, so we have a smoother line. Yeah, look at that. And I'm going to select that and subtract that. Cool. Let me look over the chat quickly. Do I paint with a pen or a mouse? I'm actually painting with this little fella over here. That's called an Intus. It's a graphics tablet and it's incredibly dirty, I just noticed. And you can get them as cheap as 60 bucks. There are, you know, cool variations where you can directly paint on the screen, but it doesn't really make you a better artist. All you need to start out is, I say, a copy paper and a pencil. You don't need more than that. And the 60 bucks graphics tablet, already enough. So you might recall the little texture we threw into at the beginning. Now we are going to use that, make a little copy so we can use it for later. And use it to skin our towers. Look at that. I didn't do any work, right? But speaking of work, there's actually something I have to put in there, which is the lights and shadows, because we can't just put a filter up and have that. You have to do that manually. There are some tricks where you can, you know, make this a bit easier for you, but we have to do that now. So there's a bit of neutral light. Then when the light comes from this direction, in my idea. So we have to have like something like so. The music is so semi-intense, I feel like I'm a detective for whatever reason. I'm used to the faction soundtracks, because I'm normally the Cantha guy, and now I'm painting Nightfall. What a twist! Oh, you know, and it's already coming along nicely. So I want to give this a bit more of, you know, of a more defined silhouette. But it looks a bit more polished, because if you zoom into this, it's super loose. So I'm using again the lasso tool to give me these sexy edges. There we go, maybe like that. Because at these areas there's going to be a little bevel that is going to throw a direct shadow. At this moment I'm just designing, you know, a bit of a mood painting so that you have a general idea. Is this an area that might be interesting for design? I'm not working for ArenaNet at the moment, of course, but you know, I'm structuring this a bit as if it would be a commission, so I could have something to, you know, rely on. Let me check that out. Something weird going in the background. Weird sounds. Okay, there we go. My neighbors are doing some really weird stuff. Don't know if you can hear that in the background, but it's spooky. Speaking in foreign tongues. So now I'm going to give it a bit more extra shadow, like so. And I'm going to do this, you know, take a bit of time to do that, because it will overall improve the image drastically, I think. Maybe do this on a second layer so I can erase stuff I don't want away again. I'm using layers in Photoshop as if I would be eating gummy bears. Not the healthiest solution, but it works for me. There you go. And this looks already believable, I find. It doesn't look hyper realistic, but we are not shooting for that anyway, otherwise you would see me texture bashing like a madman over there. So, and now, you know what? Because we are smart, let's try to throw that just over the other tower. What does that give us? It actually works, doesn't it? Work smart, don't work hard. There you go. You do something like that. And of course, there are some edges that don't make sense, but we can use that as a starting point to, you know, cut some time out of that. And given that we are only 2 hours in, we have to make good use of the time we have. Bit like that. And maybe lines here. Cool. That looks convincing enough for me. Maybe a complete round top would have more of a round shadow, like so. Yeah, that makes sense. Sorry if I'm not paying too much attention to the chat, by the way, because normally I'm used to having a bit more time for these things, especially in the DW2 Sunday class streams where we have 4 hours on our hands. I can highly recommend that if you are interested in artsy stuff. So, last but not least, I'm just going to do that with the last tower too, so we are all set and ready and can apply our glitchy textures all at once. We don't have to switch gears for a moment. I'm gonna use the same starting point, and even if they don't align, I can just color pick the, you know, the things I like and utilize them. You see, it doesn't make sense at all. Although a bit. But now I can, you know, use this, paint over that. I don't have to pick any gray, I can just rely on what I have already established. What I just noticed is there's just one, you know, one fence. And of course the tower goes, you know, around. Maybe go something like that. I'm painting with no perspective whatsoever in this. This is just, you know, completely vertical. But this will come all handy later, because we are going to warp it a bit before we apply a fixed position for it. Let's see. Maybe add something like that. Like so. There we go. More shadow around here. We have maybe some, you know, not just a plain 2D side, it's actually has shadows. A bit of a darker gray for that. Cool. So let's apply the texture already, guys. Simply make a layer mask for that. Look at that. Already looks cool, you know? And if we go through the different methods we have available, you can see there's already all kinds of interesting stuff happening. Look at this. Doesn't this look cool? Oh, I just love the last few, you know, layer methods. If exclusion, the exclusion layer style would be a woman, I would marry her. I'm just gonna be upfront. So, and the cool thing is we can even take this further. Take the same texture, apply it again. Let's see that it matches up a bit, like so. We can, you know, oh, look at all these cool, you know, shapes and details that are already, you know, existing in the painting, although we just threw textures over that. And especially it's an old painting, you know, that we just manipulated and corrupted. Maybe actually use that to make some highlights. Nah, I saw something nice. Let's see. I think I'm going to go with that, to be honest. So like erase the stuff that we don't need, because highlights on the left side wouldn't make sense, right? Because that's where our shadow comes in. And even take away a bit from that. Ooh, it looks a bit sloppy. There we go. So how are we going? So how are we going to give it a bit more light? Crank this up. And then erase what we don't need. Cool. Same for the next tower. This might seem a bit tedious, but I'm always fascinated by this progress, because until you know, put it over the object, you have no idea what this might bring you. This is a bit chaos to control, so to say. So let's see. Oh, I love this one already. But we are going with the same, you know, layer method, so the towers look like they are from the same gang, you know. So, but what different method did we choose next? Hopefully we can spot that. I think it was, yeah, that looks like it. You have these, you see these orange tones? These are the little details over there that give it a little bit more of, you know, crunchiness. So we're going with that. Nice. So, looks alright already. You know what? I'm going to make a copy of the black and white version. What happens if we overlay that again? That's some interesting results. Could do this all day. Look at that. I already like that. You know what? I'm gonna make a copy for that, just in case this might come in handy later. So this is a bit of a specialist, because what I would like to do later on is, you know, do something like so. So that it actually, you know, makes sense that it's just not a plain 2D thing. There are also these structures that we had in the front, and they are also circling behind the object. So we have to take this into consideration too. Let's see. You know what? I'm just gonna merge them, I think. This looks convincing to me. Maybe like so. Yeah. I'm okay with that. Oh, Photoshop. Please. Please. We are in the same boat. Maybe save it in between, by the way. Sooner or later, if you work in this business, you get like an itchy finger, so you're always on. It's like smoking a cigarette for you. That's like, I need to take a safe one. Oh, I feel okay again. Don't believe everything I say today, especially if I talk about cancer. So give this a bit more of such a structure. And I know this isn't accurate, but I'm all interested about, you know, interesting shapes. And the most boring part I could imagine to be streaming for you is just taking a picture that ArenaNet has already put out there and just say, yeah, let's paint that again. That's like, That's why you don't see too much, you know, fan artish stuff from me, like people painting Aurene cutely. Nothing wrong with that at all. But it's just boring for me, you know? I'm all about new designs and new ideas. That's what I'm selling. So that's cool, I find. But we need to adjust the shadows a bit. So it like so would make sense, yeah. Of course, there's no light in the upper region. Cool. I'm gonna separate these for now because I want to have two different kinds of textures going on there, so that we separate the back from the foreground way better. wouldn't you want to decide which tower is in the foreground and which is further back? Is asked in the chat. Yeah, I'm actually doing that later on. As of now, I'm just, you know, rendering them up, and since I keep everything I do on layers, I can later say, I'm gonna do this or do that, or maybe, you know, switch the positions of the guys. So, let's go over this. Maybe stretch it. You know, the cool thing about these glitch textures is that they are already so very broken to begin with, that if I stretch them into oblivion and they get a bit pixelated, so what? You know? They were pixelated from the beginning on, so there isn't really much to be afraid of. So you can go all crazy on them, and you can make as many as you like. They all come out of free of charge out of this application. So, exclusion was it? Yeah. Oh, I like that. So next, I'm gonna rotate this a bit. And then we are going to, I think it was, I should, you know, take at least a moment to get what I'm actually using for it, but I think it was lighten. Of course, going to erase a few details that I don't want to have in this, like so. Save it again. Every time an error pops up, I'm already again in the mood to do some savings. You know what this I find gives it like a golden, you know, sphere on top. Why don't we use that? Make a copy of this texture, pull that out, and let's look at this in normal. Alright, look at this. Isn't this a cool texture? We can take this, cut away, or select with the selection tool stuff that we don't want. And because this is, you know, symmetrical after all, we are going to mirror it into each other. And now let's watch the magic happen. I want to give this into the middle, and then ta-da! Ain't that cool? And even further go and play a bit with the... Ah, this looks awesome. So much cool stuff going on. Even divide inverts the color scheme, but you can always go back and invert it back into what it was originally, you know? This looks good too. Wow. I'm gonna take that. Ah. God, I so freaking love this. Of course, isn't all equally light? Shadows? Highlights? Maybe I should have made a copy of that so that I can repeat this on the back side. Or maybe it's just on the outer layer. I think on the outer layer seems fine because I don't want too much detail in that. And let's just test it. Maybe it's cool, maybe it totally sucks, who knows? It would look like that. You know what, I can live with that. That's actually alright. So let's pull out this for a moment, because we want this to all look equally. It's too much, way too much. And erase a bit away, like so. Ta-da! Not too much light over there. Even take a bit further. Oh, yeah. How long have you been doing art? Your style is incredible. Thank you. I've been working as a professional artist since 5 years, I think. It would, I think, work. Go. Alrighty, so this is our base. You know, we have this tower. And what I would like to do is, I find this boring from the perspective. It's just... yeah, well. So what I would like to do is make it a bit like frog perspective-ish. You know, like if you were looking at the towers. Like, you know, epic buildings that overwhelm you. That's what I want to convey with that. So, for that, we are going to warp them a bit. And this is a bit of a tricky subject that can go wrong easily. So keep in mind what you're seeing on stream is done by a trained professional. Do not attempt this at home. You know what? Do attempt this at home. It's actually really fun. So what I will do is rotate it like so. And I'm gonna notice which degree I take. 13. I think that looks... yeah, that looks okay. Like so. And this doesn't make sense anymore. If I take, for example... we have a bottle over here. And look at this bottle, you know. If you look at it straight, you have always a horizontal line. If you look at it from the top, you have a circle on the top, you know. And if I tilt this, it becomes an ellipsis. So there are varying degrees of circle, flat line and ellipsis. And now I'm trying to nail that. By the way, if you missed anything, you can catch a VOD of that later, so you don't miss any of the juicy glitching action at all. Let's see. You see that? That looks way more accurate in perspective. The only thing that doesn't make sense is this little border that we implemented in the background. Because, I'm gonna do a little sketch over here. This is the perspective. Goes a bit like, actually a tough one. Like so, you know? And it into this direction. So this circle would go like that. So the very ground of this would be here in this area and not up front. So we need to erase that away later. Alright, so now I'm going to attempt to repeat this with these little towers too, because it doesn't make sense that they are like something like that. Although maybe it's, you know, a destroyed city, so that would make sense again, but for this painting I attempt to make a nice cozy marketplace, you know? So, warp. Like so. And I'm just trying to nail it somewhat, because this is all I'm going to save out later on. Is just one layer of pixels, so I can paint over that again and again. And if it doesn't make 100% sense, so be it. I can fix that later. So don't stress yourself too much, you know? Maybe you can do like that. Looks interesting, doesn't it? So, like that. Maybe make this little fellow a bit, you know, like this. Looks cool, actually. Good thing I made a backup. Want to make this a bit. So I used 13%. Yep. Made a backup of that too, just in case. Have this a bit up like so. And even, you know, it cuts shorts over there. I can paint that in later. Just be relaxed, be at ease. Breathe. Whilst the top gets extruded too. Like so. What we could actually do... No one saw that. It was already enough from the beginning. All planned. All part of the plan. Alrighty, so we have one tower left. But I find the silhouette a bit boring, to be honest. Now that we made such fancy towers. So what I'm going to do is experiment a little bit. Because you see I have a lot of brushes, but over the course of this image I just used the hard round brush. That's what I basically do 99% of the time. The question always comes up, what brushes do you use? And you see, mostly hard round brush. But all these other here are specialists in their own field. And what I would like to do, I have some industrial brushes over here. And look at that. That's a crane. Yeah, but maybe there's some construction going on at the side of the tower. So I can make it a bit larger. Maybe take some elements out of that. Transform them. Put them in like so. Doesn't make sense that it's, you know, perfectly cut. I'm going to take away some of these details. And I can use that. So. Match it a bit. And I put it behind it so that I get a better understanding of how it will work out later. I like that. It gives it a bit more of an interesting feeling, you know? These are all buildings that are super expensive, but we have to maintain them too. So maybe that's just, you know, fanciness on the outside. Could be an interesting portrait to convey. So I'm just using the complete tower to give the structure also to this. But I'm going to make them a bit darker so that you can actually see that there is something going on. Alrighty. So, duplicate this bad boy. Then, rotate it by 13 degrees. Use the warp to give us some perspective. Like so. Like that. Like that. And what I would like to make this even smaller. Copy of that. Maybe do something like that. Right? 13 degree. And I'm going to warp that. And the perspective is already coming along nicely. Now we can use these as references so that everything makes sense together. And use it like so. Maybe do a little bit of a gap. You have some overlap going on over here. There's a little gap. Good thing I made this happen on the 13 degree thingy. I think. Yeah, that works. Let me look over the chat quickly. I will try to program some own picture glitches. Thanks for the idea. Go for it. It's really funny, and you can basically break a picture by using the editor. You can completely break it until to a point that you can't open it anymore, but in theory you can. Where can I find the code for processing 2 to move pixels around? I can quickly give you a little shout out to that. Let me see, where do I have this? The algorithm is called ASDF pixel sort. This was our first image, and then we glitched it, and then we glitched it, and then we glitched it even more. And now we are painting with it, like the savages we are, like the cool hackers that we are. Alrighty, so let's get back on track. I want to have, you know, some of these guys in the background so that it looks like an actual, you know, not just like 3 random towers and some interesting, you know, cityscape. So we are going to do this. Also warp it. Yeah, this is coming along nicely, you guys. Normally everything on stream should be going wrong, but today some kind of an odd convenience for me. But maybe I'm, you know, posting too soon and Photoshop is going to crash any second. That would suit me. So, make this a bit, you know, pinchy. The cool thing is, if I make this really pinchy, you don't recognize at the first impression that this is just another copy of this one, you know? So you can reuse these. They will later on, you know, more blend with the background, so I'm not really worried about that. I'm just trying to convey an interesting idea for a city. Oh yeah, right, maybe rotate it first. 13 degrees it was. Was it Fahrenheit or was it Celsius? Oh. Yeah, I actually use layers like some people eat gummy bears, but I'm in recovery. In my humble beginnings, I used abused the zoom to a degree that innocent bystanders actually got seasick. So it's getting better by the day. I'm working on it, but some things I can't shake off. So let's fix this for a moment. Oops. Didn't want to paint, I want to erase that, guys. Like so. So I'm somewhat happy with the with how the towers work at the moment. There are a lot of details that are missing, but I want to establish the image itself first. Because if this doesn't work, we don't have to, the details won't save it. So I have to make sure the composition works as a breeze. Even if the rendering isn't on spot, you can still get a really nice painting if the composition is, you know, planned through. So let's erase that away. Let's look at that, you know, makes way more sense, because you assume the ground is, you know, something you can't see because you're looking from the frog perspective at it. So let's take that away too. I'm, you know, using this as a reference. I'm just going with the flow and erasing it. I don't use any rulers or stuff like that, although I would. If you are a beginning artist, don't hesitate to use vanishing points and a lot of rulers and plan a lot, because I do some things here through just feeling whatever seems right, but I've been painting environments since years. But every time I started a painting and I thought to myself, ah, that's so easy. I don't need vanishing points for that, it's baby stuff. That's when I failed the hardest. So, you know, don't get arrogant. Always remember your roots, because the cool thing is you can utilize this later on to fix it. And especially round, you know, objects are wonderful to go with a vanishing point. Some people actually don't know how to utilize that. I can give you a quick example, because I think one person in the chat will go, oof. Quick vanishing point, guys. Let's see. Do something like that. And if I would now paint in perspective like here, I would go like, and then follow this line, this, and then I have something like that, and then I would follow on this, and then go between these two lines, and you know, go again. This is how vanishing points work basically. But what if we throw in a circle? What now? Do we like put it here, or do we put it there, or So what you can simply do, you already saw this in the preview, just make a rectangle around it. That's what I always do. And I'm just gonna make this a bit like that. Merge this for the moment. And then we can, you know, align this in perspective. Like so. There you go. Anyhow, back to our tower fiesta. So, the background is still a lot of noise going on, so I'm going to, you know, shrink that down a bit. Stuff like that I'm not even concerned about. That looks like something interesting is going on in the background. We can incorporate that later on. I'm downloading GW2 on a crappy laptop because I'm 100 of miles away from computer, just in case he gives away more game codes. What I can recommend to you guys, at the bottom of this stream there is a little, you know, overlay. There are all my social media handles. You can stalk me on there. You're always welcome to do that. I'm giving away tons of games over there, so you don't have to, you know, sit here like, where are the games? You can just take part in a giveaway. How cool is that? Lot of everything. And also, if you like to support this effort and on Patreon, get the high resolution data for desktop or print it yourself, there's also a Patreon link down below. And if you pledge enough money, I might come to your house and paint you a thing or two in Photoshop. Who knows? So, where were we? Yeah. So what I would like to do is frame these guys, you know, and not in a manner like. Good job. But more in a manner of putting some interesting objects in the foreground, you know. I'm just doodling over that, but this looks, you know, you see where this is going. Cool, isn't it? Like so. And you have this. Ah. So, let me arrange a bit on the side and take a quick sip for a moment, because I'm already talked so much that these big cola bottles are neat. 1.5 liters. If you ever feel like, I haven't felt like I drank from a bucket in a long time, but I want to do that, I can recommend them. Speaking of meeting, I will be creeping around the Gamescom and be awkward there. So if you want to join me in being awkward, holla at me if you're there. Oh, there's also the GW2 community meetup, which was announced, I think, a few hours ago. And guess who's there? Guess who's there? Your boy Vasburg. What shapes do we put in there, guys? Do we go with a bit like, you know, I don't know. Maybe, let me think for a moment what look cool. That's way too bright. Where does this come from? Bit of that away. You know, we are losing so much detail in there. So what happens if you take one of these textures again, and look what I'm doing now. Warp it into oblivion. No! That's too much warp! And save it. It looks a bit like an interesting background. And now we can play again. Ah, look at that. That looks cool. Ah, you have this, you know, little hints of, you know, of an evening going in the background. Of course, this doesn't make sense. You know what? I'm just gonna erase it. Doesn't make sense? Erase it. Completely fine. Can we amplify this effect? That's that's a yummy texture. Good thing we made this in the beginning. Look, that's true, you know. Going a bit crazy. Radio. You're the guy who makes the awesome concept art. I don't know. What? I'm not employed by ArenaNet at the moment, but I do happen to be a concept artist, so you might be right and wrong at the same time. So, you know what? The most clumsy way I could imagine is just going to throw this all into a folder and name it background. Yeah, but I want to extract a few textures out of that so we can work with them later on the foreground. Oh, I'm on a roll today. So, let's work on the foreground, finally. What I would like to do is, you know, implement here a big chunk and there a little chunk. So, maybe there is like also some structures that could be connected to a building, but I don't want to flesh that out. All people have to look at the middle of the image. This is the star. This is where I want the people to look. So this is going to be very suggestive. Let's go a bit like so. Maybe something like that. Yeah, that looks alrighty. And the cool thing about this is that it creates a bit of tension in the image, you know, like if you would pinch like a bean and then it would just fly into this. Alright, but I want to refine this a bit again. Maybe take a bit away of that here. So. Alrighty-o. But I want to make, what I found to be a cool idea is make like a little, you know, chopping window that goes in there. I did this in a preview and I really liked it. I'm not convinced that this is the right spot for that, so I'm going to shape this a bit more. Maybe give it some more room. Like so. It's to move. Oops. You know what? We are smart people, aren't we? We are clever. So because this might be a bit too much center to the right, we're gonna do the Patrick Star solution and take the whole city and just move it somewhere else. Ta-da! Professional concept artist. Oh Christ. And ArenaNet invites me back. Or invited me back. Why? Don't know. So, I'm so excited, I'm already sweating like crazy, you guys. So, what I, by the way, always do is I have a little navigator in there, and if the image looks good in this one, you're already on a good track. So, maybe suggest something like, you know, it could be a tower 2, like that. Want to have a really sexy outline, you know? Maybe I'm just gonna use if you just tuned into the stream, this line I just painted by hand. That's as smooth as my line art gets. Spent 5 years in a Shaolin monastery for that, but I can just do that. No big deal. No biggie. No big deal. That's what I do. Alright. Maybe like that. The little thingy here is actually an important description because the perspective goes like that, you know? Like so. So we have to align that. Yeah, makes sense. How many screens does your setup have? 1 and 2. 1 with the chat and 2 for the actual painting. 2 is actually really handy because you can throw references up there, but it's not required. Required. Now you know the ultimative opinion. You can have 9, you can have 1, but I prefer 2. It's really handy. Maybe there is like some rocks going on there. And some combat music in the background. Do you actually hear the music, guys? Is it too loud? Is it alright? I'm getting pumped up here. So. Now for that little... I'm not happy with this little pimple thingy. Maybe an idea. Maybe just improvise a little shop thingy into this, like so. Right? Yeah. Yeah! I planned this from the beginning. And then we go like that. Although, you know what? We could do two. What I would like to have is like, you know, when I now would do something like, it's like a roof on top of that, like a carpet thingy-ish that keeps the light away. And maybe, where does it stand even? Like this? Yeah. And this would then go this direction. Yeah, makes sense in perspective. Does it? Let me check that quickly. So the perspective would be like this. Right? That's the point in the painting where you wish you had set up the vanishing point. So when this goes into this, then we have to go a bit more like so here. I'm placing these things, not just like there has to be this just because, but the cool thing is these act just looking at the silhouette like little arrows. They go like, look at this please, look at this please, you know. Maybe I'm going to make something like that here too. And you can also do the opposite. What I would like to do is make later on a little, you know, stuff like that, like a little drape around there with some fabric on it, because this would like circle the image in like boink, and this, you know, helps the eye to read the image better. Yeah, altering is... Are you going to add merchants? I don't think so. Simply because there isn't too much time, to be honest. I might do some quick silhouettes, but first up, I'm most interested in making this image work. And a character won't save it in case I fail. That looks cool, doesn't it? So maybe we are going to make a little extra layer, and about that cloth roof, like so, like a ninja. It is. Use these for a moment. I want this to go all the way. So it's just go with an interesting, you know, pattern so that it's not just a plane. We can, you know, go with something like that. It's tidy. For the shot, would have thought about a solution. I'm going to paint that in before selecting it. Oh, that looked good. I like to make them a bit more, you know, roundish, because what I'm doing here is I'm using a repetitive shapes, you know? Everything you see here is round, that's round, that's round. The worst thing that I could now do is put spikes on this thing, because this would completely break the, you know, the rhythm of the image. But if I would, you know, do like little bubbles on that, that would again work. If I would make a window, would I make it a spiky triangle? Or would I maybe go with the rounded window. You know? By following this rhythm, you keep everything in context and it just suits better. You know, if you're designing, for example, a big grumpy orc, and you throw him in front of or a background like the Windows XP ones, you know, into the background, no one's gonna buy that. You have to go with the mountain, with the volcanoes and the lava and fire and spikes and skulls, and then it looks, you know, convincing. But otherwise, yeah. Alright. We're still 45 minutes. Oh, better hurry a bit. Been talking too much. So, like that. Sorry if I'm not that good at keeping track of the chat. I'm mentioning a few informations more often because I don't know if someone tuned in just yet, but if you are an advocate of art, if you like to know the ins and outs, or if you're an artist yourself or a designer, have anything to do with visual design, what I always can heavily recommend are the Sunday art classes. This is a new format brought to life by ArenaNet, where we have, instead of 2 hours, you know, it's a bit little for a painting, we can take 4. And this gives or opens up windows to go into interesting topics. They're always set around something. You can also catch the VODs if you want to. I'm often on there, but there are also great colleagues I can't recommend enough. So go check them out if you're interested in that. I think the last topic was transparencies and textures. And after that we went into character design, really cool topic. Did a little experiment on how you could convey an interesting, you know, character that is already part of a franchise and make it still unique. And Voodooval joined us on this day and went a bit more into portraits. So there's a bit of everything for anyone. So let's look at that. I need to throw that all in. Looks cool. Ah, look who's there. Hey there, Miss Soul Whisperer. It's the irregular on stream. I try to read out the names and the question comes up, so I don't ramble along like a madman. So if someone watches VOD, it's a bit like it's watching a lunatic talk to himself, so I'm trying to... Oh, look at that! This is already worked just by accident. This is just, oh, such a nice line. Doesn't make sense that it goes until here, but we can fix that. Ta-da! Ah, didn't plan that to happen, but at least I say that. Maybe it's all rigged, like our game giveaways here. So take away a bit from the light because it doesn't, you know, get direct exposure. And then we are going with some interesting shapes already, aren't we? So this is how map loading screens are made. I don't know. I'm notorious for painting with the wall painting, and there are so many approaches to doing great art that I'm just a very, very small fish. But basically we are doing this in Photoshop most oftenly. Some actually still use traditional mediums, but Photoshop luckily is just so fast, you know. If I would now present this to my art director and then they would say, we just had a meeting and round buildings got cancelled, and I'm, oh shit, oh shoot. Then what are we going to do now? So if you were doing this at an oil painting, you know, you had to completely scrap the whole painting, but if I'm doing this in Photoshop, I can go in and, you know, fix that. Alrighty. So again, taking the the whole picture and just... Eh? Ah. Very good. And now I'm going to warp this again and give me some interesting, you know, spaghetti texture that I can reuse. Let's see. Oh, that's cool. That looks a bit like we could make stones out of that, guys. We do something like that. And now I'm betting on some of these guys here. Yeah, this is working. Still too bright. You know what? We are just going with normal. Make it a bit darker. Make it a bit desaturated. Maybe go more into the reddish appear. And now what I'm doing, I'm just going to paint cracks into that. Like so. Alrighty. And I can also refine that for a moment. Like, oops. Oopsie doopsie. How do you control the value in this technique? By value, you mean the brightness and darkness, correct? I basically do it through multiple ways. I can, of course, hit CTRL-U. This gives me access to the master control room of any color that is on the screen. But most often I paint over that. Furthermore, what you can do is, colors are a lot of distraction for the eye. So throw over a black layer, go into color, and then you can see clearly if it makes sense, you know? What hotkey do you use to work space, white space? You mean the DJ button. You just hit R for rotate, and then you can flip it like a disc jockey. So, but we want to implement another layer, which is this little thingy, this little drape. Photoshop. I haven't found a fix, but doing this little menu thing to stop it from beeping. So, again, taking away, merging everything we already have on one layer, and then we can, you know, scavenge a bit for textures. For example, look at this. If we take this out of context, this looks for me a bit like a cloth texture. You see this? We now manipulate it a bit and throw it over here, like so. Heh. I'm smart. So, adding a bit of color to it, like this, I think. Yeah, I like to go with a bit of an orange, because things that are nearer or appear nearer do happen to appear in a more warmer color. Are you doing some kind of mentorship or tutorials? I do an effort to stream more often. Also, I'm taking part of the Sunday class streams every now and then we are going a bit more into details. But classic mentoring is something I currently do not offer. What I can recommend to you, if you can't get enough of me, to check out my Patreon. You will find any of these images, the PSD, in you know, the monthly packages, and then you can, you know, just check it out for yourself. Maybe I will throw in some tutorials if I have the time, but I kept the reward very conservative, because if I, you know, pledge like do a tutorial every month and then nothing interesting happens, then so maybe I'll throw that in as bonus. But there are some interesting rewards. Also Discord access if you want to, you know, hang around, be best friends. Is Guild Wars 2 a real game? I don't know. Are you real? And how can you prove that? Am I real? Is Photoshop real? Oh man, now I'm confused. So, crank this a bit up. Maybe add a bit of partial shadow, like so. Oh. It doesn't really strike me as looking good or convincing yet. I'm working a bit on that. So maybe go a bit with something like that. Alrighty. So maybe, you know, we just add a little more details into these gaps. They don't even connect to the rope. Who cares? Just, you know, the star is here. This is where I will invest the most time on detailing. But for this, I just, you know, want to convey the thought that there is something interesting going on, or a little, you know, shape that might be interesting. Yeah, some tent of sort. Maybe there's a marketplace, you know, that goes into the right direction. You know what? This right area strikes me still as odd. Yeah, this doesn't make sense. Why would we do this? Maybe do that. Because we switched everything by 13 degrees, why would we do, you know, completely vertical stripes there? What I don't like about this is that it barely touches. Either way it touches or it doesn't, but nothing super in between. So there's just so irritating tension over there. So I'm gonna cut that away too. I'm gonna add something here. This is already looking quite alrighty, I find. Maybe add some interesting, you know, hey, that looks good. More shapes. But this looks still too perfect. I made an effort to make this look good, and now it looks just too artificial. Don't like that. Oops. And blend a few interesting shapes there. So add a bit more of that here, like take away some of the highlights, because this is, you know, not lit directly by any light source. And now we will be throwing in some of these things in here too. Or maybe, you know, it doesn't make sense that it just happens to align perfectly like that, so we can go, you know, because my pet peeve was, you know, it just happens to end where this starts, and such perfect stuff doesn't happen in nature. or if you take a picture naturally. So I'm building in mistakes, you know, irregularities by intention, so that it doesn't look too manufactured by an artist, too perfect. So, if it's Alona, then why not add a character on a mount? Ah, 2 hours, friend. It's a bit much. I would like to. Characters are actually not my most fondest topic, to be quite frank with you. I just don't. I like environments to an unreal level, but characters. Maybe I will later on paint some silhouettes in there. You know, like little guys standing on top of there, so that you have some reference of scale. But I wouldn't go out of my way and do stuff like characters. Or maybe that isn't looking too bad, is it? Maybe like make this blue. I know that orange stuff appears nearer, but this is a nice contrast, I find. Maybe we can incorporate more of that. Ah, that doesn't work. So, again, paint with the whole picture, take this and give some interesting stuff to that. Yeah, I know what I might want to keep of that. Just erasing a few things away so that I can get a rock texture going in the down right corner, like we did in the beginning here. Well, before we overlaid this with the plane. It was a smart move. So now I might want to do a few things that give this a bit more sense. So, maybe there are like some planks, you know, that hold this place a bit together. So I'm not really worried about these lines being rough and not as unspecified, because that's a painterly technique to, you know, not draw too much focus into an area that needs a bit of content, you know. If I would now make 1 million details and give them photorealistic textures, everyone's going to look at this. But you're supposed to look at that, right? So, let's go a bit into the towers, because we spared them of a lot of love and they need some. I'm going to give them a bit more of a shadow, and the deeper this goes, I want to add more. So, and goes with that. And you know what? I'm going to do a little bit of an opposite-ish thing with that. I'm going to make a copy of that, just in case I mess up, because now I'm going to erase the very tower. Look. But it looks now as if it is way farther in the background, right? And I'm going to do the same with this little fellow. But just in case I erase too much, I'm going to make this over a layer mask. There you go. We have some depth in the image. We're going to do the same with these guys, but in a bit of a different manner, because I don't want to have any objects from behind shining through. We're going to take this very color of the background, just brush over it, you know, and it disappears into the background. So, like so. See? already working. And then we have this fellow over here too. Yeah, Lona does have a nice amount of blue in it. Especially if you look into Arabic culture, they always have like blue gems, sapphires for example. So don't be too shy to use some blue in a desert, especially because it has to do with the atmosphere, you know. This sounds like I'm lecturing an alien race, you know. But if you do concept art, you know, and the client wants a completely new planet for an alien species, then I have to ask questions like, does the planet even have water on it? Because if it doesn't, you can't use blue as an atmosphere, you know? How does this work, you know? You can't use the same blue technique I used over painting, you know, with that, if it's just an acid waste, you know? You have to work other techniques, and you have to study your subject a bit on that. And now we separated these guys nicely. And I'm going to paint a bit on top of them. So let's see, maybe... on top, not below, please. Maybe like so. We have like this border over there. And because this looks too clean, I always like to go a bit over my lines and do this to give it a bit more grip, you know? Not too painterly. Ah, right, I forgot something. Because this structure here, this is in the foreground, but this structure here is in the background, so we can use the same technique again to give it a bit more of a distance. Check this out. Picking this, painting very, very slightly, very carefully over that with a big, soft, round brush. I'm doing the same here. You see, these objects appear to be in the background now. Super simple technique. But sometimes, especially when beginners do environment paintings, you see that it seems a bit as if everything was on one layer. If everything didn't have any depth in it. You can achieve depth because basically we are making an optical illusion, you know. This very painting is on a 2D screen, but it seems like there's, you know, depth in the painting. And we can do that by overlapping objects like we do here, or, you know, implementing something like that, or using perspective. So, let's go over that for a moment. I hope I'm not boring you to death, guys, because this is all artsy tech talk, you know. We can also talk about new expansion or fidget spinners. Let's please not talk about fidget spinners. Is there any class, by the way, you guys find interesting? I'm actually considering to reroll for a Scourge. It's playing Elementalist for a bit because I find it so nicely flexible. Because I'm normally the PvP dude, now I'm discovering PvE for me. Because I can, you know, play a bit laid back and not just, you know, climb the ladder like a maniac. Actually, 2 times legend. It's true, but I simply don't have the time to compete so much anymore. So PvE is a nice thing where I can take a, you know, a bit of a laid back approach. Although I haven't been raiding very much, so Elementalist is something I fancy at the moment. Other than that, Necromancer, but there, you know, my guild doesn't really approve of me playing Necromancer in a raid, and I know exactly why, so I'm really looking forward to see what the Scourge has in store for us, right? We can talk about how much we hate fidget spinners. That's a good good suggestion. Wasn't PvP in the days back just grind? Dinner detox. What specialization are you hyped for? Scourge for some reason. I always like Necromancer, but I always find it, you know, hard to incorporate that. So I would love to see nothing more in as a revival than Necromancer. Not saying that it is completely unviable, but for example, this is my personal opinion. I'm an art dude, so what do I know? But I always found that Necromancer, especially in PvP, was just basically a sack you have to beat. Because once you let your flesh worm explode, what are you going to do? You're just tanky, you know? You have Death Shroud, you have a huge life pool, sure. But beside that, you need a lot of support from your team. And since he doesn't have that much mobility, you know, a Mesmer can just, you know, lose or make you lose your target on him, you know? There are so many defensive mechanisms. Elementalist has a lot of boons, can teleport, you know, whatever. Also has some dodge mechanics and whatnot, and some defensive abilities, but Necromancer is, you know, quite tanky for a very good reason. But in PvP this was always a bit of, you know, it was tricky. And if Scourge is going to, you know, switch the tables around a bit, I would be more than happy to check this out. Beside that, actually, the new thief thingy, I'm a bit curious on that, because what I always liked about GW1, to play spiteful builds, you know, if you played a power block Mesmer, everyone knew you're not the nice person on the team. I'm trying to put this into very willingly meant words, but you would probably choose something other. And this has a little temptation on it, you know? Have a bad day, come from work, and you think, how can I unwind? And you fire up your thief and just sit somewhere in World vs. World. I don't know, that's fun. I'm looking forward to that. I'm adding a bit of shadows over here, as you can see. I would like to switch that around. Both could make sense, but I think this is the best approach, like so. How much time do we still have? 20 minutes. Alrighty. So, I want to fix... Here's, for example, a perspective error. You would expect this to go like this, but I painted or warped it like that. Way too, you know? Too pinched, too narrow, not roundish enough. Alrighty. Add some, you know, highlighting over there. Dagger sword was a lot of fun in PvP, but I find you always have the odds stacked against you if you're playing against dagger pistol, because the guy can just unload so much damage potential in such a short duration. But it was, honestly speaking, one of the most fun builds I played in PvP, I find. That was a load of fun, lots of fun. But I find it's always so hard to, you know, to say this before an expansion hits. Because in GW1 I was always the guy who liked necromancers and mesmers, like this weird classes. And now I'm playing elementalist because it's simply fun, you know, so I'm up for anything. I'm looking forward to be surprised. Maybe I just reroll on Ranger, a class I never really liked to begin with. Just personal taste, you know? And just not my cup of tea. Maybe I go like, hey, not so bad. Somehow I always had a grudge against like AI heavy classes. But yet I played Mesmer, so what do I know? So, I need to give this a bit of a shadow, like so, and it's too cookie cutter clean. So again, take our painting as a helper, go over that, maybe like this. Oh, that's actually cool. Raise a bit away. Alrighty. Now we're going to take a bit away from that. And what I would like to do is add some quick details. So. Smaller into the middle with you. Be something like that. I'm going to go with the glitchy topic of today, and we'll combine them into Oblivion. I think maybe go with that. That of this. So, when not on stream, you should probably consider making this, you know, more precisely. But since I'm a bit in a hurry, I just want to, you know, spike a bit of detail on this, guys. Alright, 2 copies. One for the side here. Oops. I'm gonna throw them on top of everything, like so. Could actually use this as a nice motive for the, you know, maybe do something like stick and put this into perspective for a moment. There. Texture is needed. We're just gonna borrow this. Oh look, that's actually cool. Let's go a bit with the layer methods, layer styles. Go. But I wanted to throw this on the, say it again, the tower, righty. So luckily we going with 13 degrees, I recall that. Maybe I'm going to alter this a bit so it doesn't look like we are using the same texture over and over again. And then use that. Righty. Oh, that's cool. Maybe we can use the blue on that. You know, like so. Oh, that's cool. Out some solutions. I might erase them away to a certain degree. You see, this doesn't align at all. We might prioritize this over the others. Like so. This. Make that. Clean up. But it's still looking too boring to me. I don't know about you guys. But I need to do something interesting with this little Tower. So maybe give it a bit more of an Egyptian flair by implementing like blue stripes on the tower. Maybe set it to color. It's interesting. I'm not gonna use it by 100%. I'm erasing a bit away because you have to imagine if something bounces on one color and then light bounces off again, then as often, you know, adds the color to the other object. So let's see, give it a bit of a erase away. So now this is boring. How do we make our special tower special? I don't want to implement too many colors, guys, because that would make the image look funky and cheap. And this is a very prestigious city, I thought. Maybe I'm going to make a little pattern like so. How much time do we have? 10 minutes. Oh! So much for the characters. Ah! So I'm going to implement this, or finish by implementing this texture later onto the top. But after that, I will just do some general fixes to improve the overall quality of the image. That are going to be quick and easy to do. So that if I would now, you know, get stuck on painting too much detail, then rather fix the important part. So 13-degree warp. Like that. And what I need to revert this for a moment, because I didn't do this equally on both sides. This isn't a big problem. What I'm simply going to do is take the side that I find suiting best, copy it, paste it, mirror it. Two perfectly symmetrical sides. So let's make this blue. How suiting. And where is this layer? There we go. I'm gonna make little... I have so many layers that I sometimes lose track of them. So let's throw this on top. Where are you, little blue layer? Alrighty. So 13 degrees we said. Maybe? Yeah, look. Doesn't look too bad. Looks a bit Bavarian now that I notice. I can live with that. Maybe I'll fix a bit on the sides. Like so. And then that. We even have some interesting ways to combine this. This looks cool. Absolutely not the color we went with, but I find this gives it an interesting, you know. What I would like to do now is implement, you know, maybe some objects that float around this little guy. I'm gonna do that on the top layer of everything. Oh. I don't think we have the time for that. I'm gonna rely on something I tried out in the first sketch and I quite like that. I'm gonna make like little, you know, fine lines over there, erase them away for a bit, doesn't look too bad. There you go. And what would be a painting without a little flock of birds, right? Like so. Have a little bit of a sense of scale. And what I really liked while testing and sketching a bit with this subject out, what I really enjoyed was making these birds. Normally I just do them like white, like, but since this is Alona, we can, you know, make them red. So it could be, you know, parrots, some tropical kind of bird. There you go. So, because I want to frame this painting even more, I'm going to use a bit of a brush like so. Take away some of the highlights that might distract the viewer. You know, in comparison, here's the interesting stuff happening. Make a duplicate of this layer, colors nicely. Maybe add some more crunchiness to them. But we could play a bit with the colors. Ah, interesting results. Maybe make it a bit more reddish. You know? This is what we went with. Very Egyptian, and now we have a bit more of a red approach. Could even take this, paint like light into it. So. Oh, look at that. Isn't that cool? This looks so desert-ish. Yeah, there we go. Look at that, guys. Don't want to go too crazy on that, but I like that. And I have one brush in here that has like tropical plants in it, and I never paint tropical stuff, so I'm going to use this opportunity to finally throw it on the canvas. Where do I have you? Ah, there it is. I never used this brush, but I think it will be a nice fit for this image. So we can further on frame it. Make it like so. Ah, look. Look, 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 look. Aren't we cool, guys? So again, because I don't want to make this like a just one layer with everything, or with just the one base color, I'm going to use again the wall painting. And you know, some stuff doesn't matter. It doesn't make sense. Doesn't matter to me, because I just want to, you know, give this a bit of some texture to it, like so. Wow. Maybe add some of these on the other side too, like that. I especially like the maybe even do something like that. But then I'm going to erase. And now Photoshop is bugging out on the last minutes that we have. Go a bit into that. There you go. Maybe change the color. Something like that. I won't get rid of this bug. I'm sorry if this is irritating you, but we are in the same boat. Ah. Right. You know what? I'm going to leave it at that. There you go. 2-hour concept art painting, speed run environment stuff with glitch art. There you go, guys. Forgot the signature. I have 3 minutes to get my name right. Actually failed with that a while ago. Thankfully, Stephanie Bourget, shout out for making me notice and making this show happening. Pointed out that I just wrote my name wrong in the signature. Let's see. Vasburg 1-7. Don't like when this peeks out. I normally don't like signing my own work because it's just distracting from the painting, but nowadays, unfortunately, you have to. I'm using the same technique, but it blends a bit better with the painting. So there you go. One quick... Let me get rid of this brush for a moment. Eh? What? There you go. Quick environment painting, Colonian stuff. So thanks everyone for joining me. We are right on time, guys. If you can't get enough of this weird person in the bottom left of the screen, check out the social media links, Twitter, Tumblr, Instagram. I have infested everything. And I'm also on Patreon, where you can get this artworks in higher resolution and also in a format already prepared, so you can print it any way that you like. Also, I'm going to do gem giveaways on Twitter, Tumblr, whatsoever. So come on in and grab some gems for the expansion so you can, you know, start prepared. Coolio. Now, thanks again for joining me. And I'm so on point. I'm such a little German fellow. And also, if you are at the Gamescom, feel free to say hello. I will be, of course, at the ArenaNet meet and greet. Cool. So, thanks for watching, and I hope you have a nice evening. Cheers.